Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you are joining us from. Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade, powered by the Global Magazine, the Global Alliances, proudly welcomes you all to this exclusive interview series in connection with World MSME Day 2022. In this series of interviews, we'll be looking at global perspectives of coordinated efforts to the post-pandemic economic recovery of MSMEs. I'm Aparna G. Kumar, the Global Co-Chairperson of GCPIT and your host for the show. Every year on June 27th, Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Day is celebrated to honor their role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Small and medium-sized enterprises or SMEs account up to 90% of businesses, 70% of employment, and they account for half global GDP, according to the United Nations. GCPIT, or the Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade, is an organization based in India, South Africa, US, UK, and UAE with board and council member representation across the world. We have been celebrating World MSME Day from 2018, and this year we are celebrating this day by bringing you global perspectives from various leaders, departments, ministries, chambers of commerce, and international organizations. We believe that global perspectives have a significant role and can impact on paving the way to the future. Today, we have with us Mr. Dennis Okore, who is a private sector development practitioner who used communications and public policy to catalyze impact through human-centered and system change approaches. He, with over 15 years of experience and expertise in government relations, public affairs, communications, and sustainability, mustered from stints in the media, legal, ICT, for health, humanitarian, and extractive sectors. During these stints, he has acquired board-level experience in designing and implementing results-bearing communication strategies, multi-stakeholder engagements, branding and reputation, innovation strategies, and entrepreneurship, leading startups and SMEs capacity strengthening programs. He believes that it is crucial for Africa to reclaim the sustainability agenda and narrative, act to protect the environment, and add relevant global innovation to the indigenous knowledge base. Welcome, Mr. Dennis, to our show. Thanks for joining us today in this very crucial discussion on SMEs.
It's a pleasure to be part of this important conversation today, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And to begin with, we all know that 3 years into the pandemic, the whole world is facing challenges of the COVID-19, and MSMEs are among those that have been hit hardest by the crisis. How do you think has been the recovery of the MSME sector so far during and post-COVID?
Yeah, indeed, the pandemic really hit the MSMEs, and this was an irony because if you look at most of the economies, Kenya included, MSMEs play a big role in contribution to the GDP and even to job creation. So they were hardly hit. But post-COVID, we've seen very many MSMEs getting back to business, trying to reinvent their wheel despite the effects of COVID. And the post-recovery has mostly been favoring the MSMEs who are in service sector, because this was one of the sectors also hardly hit. But interestingly, also, it was easy to pick up from the reins of the pandemic. So we've seen most SMEs were in the service sector trying to pick up, but mostly the SMEs who are in the informal sector, whom most of them were able to pivot, or they were able to restructure their businesses to maybe scale or change location. We've seen these businesses picking up in some of the areas. So we'll say that the general optimism of the economy, this has been through the incentives that the government had put during the pandemic. This has helped the small businesses to also ride on the goodwill that was extended to private sector, though we saw a lot of government efforts trying to cushion both the private sector and also SMEs, mostly around removing the fees from the bank, like in terms of access to finance, easing the climate, and kind of easing off the fees that are associated with access to credit. So these are some of the things, though to a lower extent, this contributed to businesses coming up. And of course, there's been general demand for goods or services as people get back to life.
access to credit, equity, and payment services. It's mostly restricted to MSMEs, right? As we all know, MSMEs are the largest employers in many low-income countries, and still this is happening. So access to financial services to the sector can boost job creation, raise income, reduce vulnerability, and increase investments in human capital. What, according to you, is the situation of MSME financing instruments in your country during and post COVID-19?
The access to finance is still a challenge, and even before the pandemic, the period where we are calling BC, before the pandemic, before COVID, that is, and it was still a challenge. And I think the pandemic really aggravated the situation of MSMEs in terms of accessibility, but also accessibility compounded with affordable finance. This was a real challenge. And even as post the pandemic, this is still a challenge. And this is because there are still no avenues to avoid affordable credit. But this is also further compounded by the challenge of SMEs in terms of compliance, because you find most of the MSMEs are informal, and this becomes a real challenge for financing institutions to establish a credit history. And as such, they consider this type of businesses to be risky, and they will not really concentrate on them so much because of their risk profile. So these are still really compounded the challenges for SMEs, especially who are looking for trade financing or even for financing to scale up their operations. So that is still a challenge that I think government will, and the sector generally faces. The government of Kenya had started putting in place mechanisms to actualize the credit guarantee scheme, which has kicked off in partnership with financial institutions in Kenya. But what we are still seeing, there's still a low uptake of this credit facility. And they still need to support, especially from a policy perspective, to see how the element of compliance can be strengthened for SMEs so that they are able to get the requisite documentation, permitting, licensing, so that they can do and engage business formally. So that, I think, is a long-standing problem that MSMEs that will find. But beyond that, we've seen also a lot of optimism from other sectors like non-governmental organization and development financial partners coming on board with products to mitigate this. Though the market is so huge, so their efforts, while it's appreciated, is still not addressing some of the MSMEs.
You were mentioning about policies, like as policies, institutions, and regulations that provide a conducive environment for small enterprises can make a substantial contribution to building a self-reliant economy. What are the key highlights of policies and strategies for building a self-reliant economy in your country as of now? And can this percolate down well to the micro enterprises, as the majority of SMEs are micro units? And what changes do you suggest?
Thank you. That's a very timely question, because even as we celebrate the MSME Day 2022, it's very important that in this month in Kenya, we've just witnessed a very significant development, and that is the establishment of the MSME Alliance, which is an umbrella body bringing various MSMEs across sectors to come together to have a platform where they can now formally engage with government, with partners, with a view of influencing policy and also creating an enabling environment where they can be able to advocate for issues that affect them. Because previously we've been seeing engagement that is happening, it's not representative, it's fragmented, it's not structured. So for the first time, we are seeing the MSMEs coming together under this alliance to really have a formidable force and voice. And I think this will add impetus in terms of advocacy and fighting for the rights of SMEs towards creating an enabling environment. Talking about policies, the policies here, we have to look at the key aspects that really affect SMEs. And in my opinion, SMEs have a challenge in terms of access to skills. This is whereby SMEs are able to get skills to impact into the value they're creating in their product, but also skills that enable them to be able to trade in the marketplace effectively. So one of the things that the government should be able to do, and in Kenya, we are gearing up for elections, and we're starting to see even politicians start talking of policies like putting in place mechanisms to recognize those with skills, but they don't have certifications. So this is a key area that we need policy to be in place, and part of the skills is also upgrading the MSMEs to acquire digital literacy skill, because with the new age now post-COVID, there is a lot of demand that every business, every entity must adopt a digitalization. So that is one area. The second area is around strengthening the policies that are enabling affordable finance and also accessibility, because the interest rates that are currently prevailing in the market, though they're controlled by the market forces, but government can create incentives that can ease off the burden, but also bringing in innovation in the element of finance, whereby it is only not based on collateral, because most of these MSMEs really don't have collateral, but you'll find majority of the financial institutions are pegging their financing on collateral. So that is an area that could really impact that, but also in terms of market access. I think here there's been a lot of work that has been going on already in terms of increasing market access, but the needs are so big. So how can we showcase this market that the products that are built in Kenya into the Kenyan market, and even expose them to the regional market? Because as we speak, the East African economic bloc is now well positioned in Africa, and that could be a market opportunity that can be ring-fenced. But another one which has been a challenge here is in terms of those MSMEs who are trading with county governments and with the national government, there's been issue of delayed payment. And this has affected the operating capital that these MSMEs and SMEs have. So if the government can be very, very clear and very pronounced on having a policy environment that can really support the issues of payment, I think that could elevate some of the suffering and really help the SMEs towards building back better towards resilient businesses and sustainable businesses.
You mentioned about the MSME Alliance. I think that's a significant development for supporting SMEs during this crisis. My next question actually was, what impact do public-private partnerships have on economic growth according to you? And how are the leaders promoting PPPs?
Yeah, that's quite important, because the public-private partnerships are very, very important, especially in an economy like Kenya, because first of all, they support the Kenyans to be able to achieve some of their aspirations through the attaining or delivering the public goods that the government could not have done so on itself. So by so doing, it is able to bring on board projects which have large scale and also they are capital intensive. And also these public-private projects, they are really projects that really create jobs. So one of the ways they could create jobs for MSMEs is by ring-fencing some of the opportunities within the procurement, because these are high-value procurements worth billions of shillings. And we could put in policies in place. This most of the players who have been playing in this space are well-established businesses, but we could say maybe 20%, 30%, or even 15% opportunities that have been ring-fenced purely for MSMEs to be able to deliver goods and services. So I will say that the public and private partnerships they are real driver of opportunities for MSMEs. And we've already seen that doing in the bigger infrastructure projects where MSMEs are supplying some goods, they're coming together. But due to the complexity and also the interest of these projects, most of the time also we see that MSMEs' interests are really not taken care of, and sometimes they miss out on this opportunity. But I think these will be game changers because they're also long-term projects. So it could also offer opportunities for MSMEs to have a pipeline of revenues that can position them for growth and success.
And what do you think is the current scenario in Kenya in terms of job creation in the MSME sector?
Job creation is, I will say currently it's to a lower extent. And this is because the whole economy is still suffering from the issue of the pandemic. That is one. So we're in a recovery mode. But as we have been doing that also, there have been other externalities that have compounded this recovery. And this include the external environment, like the war in Ukraine, which have made other things like oil, because of the supply chains that have been affected. So these are somehow compounded the economic situation, and we're seeing prices of commodities rising. We are seeing a shortage of dollars. So, and also in Kenya, we are gearing up for elections. So these factors really have affected businesses to not operate optimally because they are on a wait and see kind of mode to see what will happen. So their exposure to risk is high. So this has also, in a way, stifled job creation. And while this is also happening, we've seen also job losses from the private sector, like the big entities, because of some of the issues I've raised there, because of also the dynamics of working from home, the business reconfiguring and saying now they need to deploy a lot of technology into their business units. So they may not need the workforce the way they need, they may not need the office spaces. So, well, this is also making people to lose job. In a way also, we've seen that some of these people who are losing their jobs in the private sector, in the big multinationals and companies, they have come down and exercised their entrepreneurship. So it's like an unintended consequence that has been coming up. So we're also seeing rise of small scale businesses who are basically are MSMEs. So it's a win and it's a give and take kind of scenario. We can't say that we are on a positive trajectory, but generally there is optimism because the World Bank recently released a report which they're estimating that the Kenyan economy will grow by 5.5%, which looks not bad owing to the exposures of externalities that the economy has had. It means that there's some resilience, and I hope this also may be reflected in other things like foreign direct investment and also optimism by investors to come and bring in more money. And this will be able to provide some opportunities for MSMEs to plug in.
Having said that, have you thought of a strategy for creative economic development of MSMEs? And if so, can you please share it with us?
Yeah, so this is quite interesting. This is quite interesting because when we're having all this gloom and bloom about the pandemic, the creative economy is one side of things, which is there's a lot of activity. And with the adoption of technology, we are seeing that the government through the Ministry of ICT and Youth have been very vocal in terms of promoting digital adoption and digital literacy skills. And one of the things that this has contributed, like we have seen a lot of youths and young people coming together to set up enterprises which are producing music and gaming. We're seeing rise of gaming as an enterprise that people are making income out of it. But even more importantly, in terms of music, we're seeing how the music is being handled right now. It's with a creative motive. We are seeing a rise in podcasts and all that. And one of the things the government has pegged this on is to try to promote this with the technology side of it, but also we are seeing a lot of collaboration between the government and the development partners with the various, most of them based in the foreign embassies, like the ministry of, like the embassies, like the German embassy, the Dutch embassies. These have been very, very vocal in terms of promoting a creative economy. And one of the things now is that the question that are now arising is how can the government now put in mechanisms and policies to ensure that those involved in creative economy, first of all, they are recognized. And this is recognized even in our education system. The government is really active in terms of promoting the creative economy through the Ministry of ICT and Youth Affairs. And one of the things that is driving this conversation is the adoption of digital and technology as a way of anchoring the work of creative economy. And the main issues here where the government is trying to address is looking at the rights of the creators, because most of the creators have been crying and saying that, see, we do all this work, first there is no recognition, we are not getting benefits out of this, so we can't make an economic benefit out of this work. So those are some of the issues that have been raising. And I think as we go forward, we've been seeing also a rise of consciousness in terms of the creative economy, on how these creators are able to protect their intellectual property. And I think this is very, very good, because for a long time, this has not been in place. So right now, creative economy is gaining a lot of prominence in Kenya. We are seeing podcasts coming up. We are seeing people getting into gaming, and we are seeing a lot of digitalization of content, which this content now can be commercialized and sold even beyond Kenya. So this is a growing area and an interesting place where there is opportunity. And we're seeing this also trying to percolate in other industries, like how the creative economy has been able to support other initiatives like tourism in Kenya by showcasing some of the tourist sites. I think that is quite fantastic. So this is an area that is growing and has opportunities in Kenya and even in Africa at large. And as we reflect on World MSME Day, I think this is one of the areas that really we need to focus, promote, but ensure that there are enough safeguards to support the creativity and innovation in this space, but also to ensure that there is funding. You'll see, like in most of the counties in Kenya, because of the devolution, we still not seeing counties putting in money to drive the creative economy, because most of the budget allocation is made maybe to recurrent expenditure or to manufacturing, but creative economy still lack funding. So one of the areas that, as part of this focus, is to really ensure that there's a lot of financing that can be used to put in infrastructure, to put in research that can go into production of quality goods out of the creative economy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dennis Okore, for your valuable input on this serious issue. As you said, the whole economy is still recovering, and we need to do a lot to support MSMEs. Digitalization, affordable finance, and accessibility to finance have to be focused on, and public-private partnerships can be great drivers of change. Let's hope this discussion will be a small step towards creating a huge change, not just in your country, but globally. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And this is quite a very engaging conversation. And I think at the last, I will say that we should not forget to remind SMEs about the Sustainable Development Goals to underpin their businesses. So we still need to support them in that area. Thank you very much. It was nice speaking to you.
Thank you so much. And MSMEs are the backbone of any economy, and they are badly hit during this pandemic. Let's come together to support MSMEs recover and come back to normal. If you are an expert and you have an opinion to share, we would like to invite you to join us in the discussion. Please mail us at contact@gcpat.us. We have a lot of viewers who have joined us on all the social media platforms. If you are an MSME and have any question to ask or concerns to express, please comment under this video. We'll take it up with the experts. We are on a mission 100 million, a mission to touch the lives of 100 million entrepreneurs. If you would like to join us and be part of this game-changing mission, you can contact us through mail, or you can find us on all social media platforms as GCPIT Global. Let us together change the world brick by brick. Let us be the change we wish to see in this world, as Mahatma Gandhi said. See you all in our next session with another expert leader on MSMEs. Till then, this is Aparna Ji Kumar signing off. Bye-bye. Take care. Have a good day.